Let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Sebastian K, who writes, there wasn't a lot of big headline stuff from Marvel at the Comic-Con going on in Brazil. There was some interesting stuff. Brought up. But what I thought was interesting is what wasn't talked about, namely Deadpool. We've now gone through Comic-Con, D23, and now Brazil Comic-Con with no news or explanation about what's going on with him, the Merc with a Mouth. Why do you think that is? All right, thanks a lot for sending in that question, man. And I think, Sebastian, you raise a fascinating point, because as I was reading, the highlights of what went on, and there's some interesting things. They talked more about Black Widow. They showed a little bit of Eternals footage, and nothing ground shaking or anything like that. But I didn't even think about it. It wasn't until, Sebastian, I got your email that I thought, you're right. Still nothing. Still no word, nothing about Deadpool. Now, what some people might say is, but John, they also haven't talked about X-Men or Fantastic Four yet. Yes, but with X-Men and Fantastic Four, there are more problems and hurdles and things they need to work around to introduce that. We had this big ongoing cinematic universe. It was all thing. We need to reboot it. How do we bring it in? What are we going to tie it in with? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Deadpool doesn't have those problems because Deadpool didn't exist within any continuity anyway. It even breaks continuity with itself, which is part of the charm of the Merc with a Mouth. By the way, I love this graphic that Ray put together. I think that's awesome. That's part of the charm of the Merc with a Mouth. It is I'll say this, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I think it's fair to say there are much fewer obstacles that Disney needs to hurdle in order to bring Deadpool to the screen. Deadpool, until recently, was the number 1 and number 2 R-rated box office films in history, until recently. These movies are incredibly successful. They have an incredibly popular star right now. Much fewer obstacles in the way to get him going. The question becomes, why on earth have we gone through Comic-Con, we've gone through D23, and now we've gone through, Rob, by the way, a thing we got to go to next year, which is this Brazilian Con. We have to go there. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. We got to go next year. And still nothing. I think there's one of two possibilities, and I'll tell you which one I think it is. Possibility number 1 is that they just want to keep it quiet for now. They want to keep it under wraps. They got big surprises coming, whatever, and they're trying to keep it under wraps. And I think that is par for the course when it comes to Disney and Kevin Feige and how they do their business. They like to keep everything tight-lidded until it's time to not have a tight lid on it. But option number 2, and I'm not going to lie to you, I think this is what's happening. I still don't think they know what they're going to do. I still think they're still trying to hash out and figure out what is the best way to handle Deadpool. Because Bob Iger, we know, does not want R-rated stuff mixed in with the MCU. That's a convolution of the brand. He doesn't want to risk that trust he has with the families and with parents and all that kind of stuff. Say, oh, this movie in the MCU is rated R, this one isn't, and cause that whole kerfuffle. So what do you do with them? We've talked ad nauseum, Rob, about there are a few options. Number 1, you do him rated R outside of the MCU, and he's got his own things, and you don't cross him over with the MCU. Number 2, you make him PG-13, and you bring him into the MCU, and maybe then there's a third option, which I don't think works, have him rated R in his own films, and then rated PG-13 in the MCU films. Again, that seems to break Bob Iger's edict that will just cause confusion with parents and audiences about parents knowing what, like, my kid's screaming at me because we saw Deadpool in an Avengers movie, but now I won't take him to see this one because it's rated R. Thanks a lot. That's the stuff that Bob Iger takes very, 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 whether you do or not, whether I do or not, it's irrelevant. Bob Iger takes that stuff very seriously. Yeah. But it is an option on the table. I think it's the least likely one, but it's still in play. And Rob, I think because you're talking about a character that has made $1.5 billion as an R-rated franchise in 2 movies, and no one ever even heard of Deadpool before that, I think they're going to be very, very careful. And I honestly think right now, and I could be wrong, this is just me speculating, I don't think they've come to a final decision yet. I still think they're still hashing this out. They know they've got 35 other movies on the burner right now. They know they're not in a huge rush, although you don't want to wait too long. But I think right now they still just don't know what they're doing, because I was a little bit surprised once I realized that, yeah, they didn't mention Deadpool. That surprised me a little bit coming out of Brazil. Rob, were you surprised that they still haven't mentioned it? And if so, what are your theories about to why they're not really giving any words to this yet?
I wasn't surprised at all. I feel exactly the way you do. I think they have no idea. And by the way, I don't necessarily think it's a priority. Remember, you're coming off of Endgame, which made almost $3 billion.
Yep.
Kevin Feige has how many TV shows that they're making for Disney Plus? He's got Eternals, he's got Black Widow, he's got the Thor Love and Thunder and Blade. I mean, he's got a full plate. And these are things that he controlled. Remember, Deadpool's a hand-me-down. I mean, as much as I love the Deadpool films and all that, do they have a real incentive to go back Deadpool's great, but they've got their own thing that they've built that's incredibly successful. It's the most successful run of films of all time. So why not keep doing that? Where's the incentive to go make a Deadpool movie when every movie you're making averages out to $1 billion?
Yeah. And you've got about 15 or 20 projects that are in the works right now.
Yeah, and that you know are going to be good.
So no rush, whatever. But I got to admit, I thought it's been, over a year since we heard about, the merger of these two things. Well, longer than that, really, if you go back to the original announcement. So the fact that they still haven't told us what's going on. And Rob, it's been like 9 months since we were at CinemaCon and Alan Horn came on stage with, we got plans for this guy, and put up a big picture of Deadpool on the thing 9 months ago, and we still know what they're doing.
And I also think, if you think about the MCU, they're losing their heavy hitters in Captain America and Iron Man.
Right.
The Fantastic Four and the X-Men are heavy hitters. So if the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever starts to plateau and go down, they've got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four waiting in the wings to re-energize the brand. And people will wait, because by not having them, they bring up interest. And I think it's a pretty good strategy, because they'll get at least another 5 or 6 or maybe even a decade out of those properties once they're properly introduced into the MCU.
Question here is, guys, were you surprised, or maybe you weren't at all, that Disney is still keeping a tight lip on what's going on with Deadpool? Do you think it's because they just don't want to announce it yet? Or do you think, like I think, and by the way, I could totally be wrong, they could totally know what they're doing, but my suspicion right now, totally as a fan speculation, is that I don't think they've made a final decision yet. I think they're still evaluating, and they know they've got lots of time. But what do you think about it? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.